Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Max Warframe, where today we're going to be taking a look at the newest addition to the dual swords category of weapons, the Grineer Fire Axes, the Twin Basolk. Now, the twin swords category of melee isn't exactly one that's small in size, and has been expanded fairly recently with the addition of the dual cameras prime to the bunch. So how does the Twin Basolk actually try and make itself stand out from the crowd? Well, its base damage of 45 puts it firmly in sort of third in class behind the Nami Skylar and the previously mentioned dual cameras prime. The difference is though that the 45 damage comes purely in the form of fire damage. With it all being fire damage, it means it goes into combining very nicely into some very useful damage types such as radiation or blast. So it's off to a good start with these weapons. So how are the rest of the stats? Well, it starts off pretty well with a decent 25% status chance, meaning that when built for status, these things can really proc some very useful status effects and fairly regularly. So moving on from that, this is where it all starts to go downhill. With a base attack speed of 0.83, it really is a terribly slow weapon, with Fury only bringing it up to 1.1 when modded, making these really feel like you're trying to kill things while in a vat of syrup. And it's not like you can use Berserker to bail yourself out either. With a critical chance of just 5%, there is absolutely no way that you can get the superior speed that Berserker can offer. In addition to that, the range of them is extremely small, so while they do have a fairly decent slide attack damage, you have to be hugging the enemy to even have a hope of landing that slide attack. And all of this is before I get to the worst thing about these things, the build costs. Not only do you need the blueprint from the market, it's also going to cost you a fully built dual Zoran and the Grineer sidearm, the Atomos, and that comes to about 180,000 credits. And whilst the material costs are not horrendous, they are still fairly sizable and definitely not something to be sniffed at. Now, in terms of stances, from the teaser it did appear like that there was going to be potentially a new stance coming for the dual swords, although it definitely did not get released in the update on Wednesday. Now, this means you've got the choice between Crossing Snakes and Swirling Tiger. And as I said in the Dual Cameras Prime video, I absolutely hate both of these stances, but Swirling Tiger is definitely the better of the two. It's faster, more manoeuvrable, and it's lucky since it matches the polarity of the stance slot of the weapon. Okay, so let's move on to modding the Twin Basolk. Now, it does come with a polarity as standard. It comes with the V polarity, and it comes with the double dash polarity up in the stance slot. Now, there's only really one build that I would consider for this, and that is basically just a straight up melee build. So we've got Prime Reach on there to try and extend the rather pitiful range on these things to land the spin attacks. Pressure Point for damage. Fury to take our attack speed up to a rather pathetic 1.08. I've got an unranked life strike on here if you want to channel a bit more. If you want to just channel once and get all your health back, then go with a max one. And there's only really two elemental combos that I would go with on this weapon. I would go either Radiation and Viral for the sort of crowd control, and obviously the Viral proc is very, very, very good. And then obviously if you're using the Radiation proc, you can have the enemy's allies shoot at him, which does a little bit more damage. Or if you switch things around a little bit, you end up with Corrosive and Blast. And basically what you do is you go in there, you knock out their armor with the corrosive damage, and you hope for the blast damage, the blast proc to knock them down, and then you go in for a ground finisher, which really does do a decent amount of damage. Now, this is pretty much, two very different ways of playing the weapon. Obviously, you've got the very, very straight melee, the normal sort of hack and slash melee you're used to, and then the fairly slow blast proc ground finisher style, which is, it works, but it is very, very slow, and it's not particularly interesting, but it's worth a try. If you're trying to get the most out of these weapons, give that build a go and see whether you like it, pretty much. So do I think the Twin Basolk are worth the time, effort and resources to build them to max? And the answer to that is not really, no. Lately we've been lucky and we've got a whole load of weapons that are, while not top tier, are fun to play and definitely are not complete mastery fodder. So it stands to reason every now and again one would fall into that mastery fodder category. Literally the only thing that these have going for them is the looks, which are pretty damn cool, and that status chance. As I said in the build, you can really focus the status chance into a certain playstyle, namely corrosive and blast, with finishes to get those knocked down by the blast proc. Now while this is probably the most effective way to play these things, since the raw damage isn't that great and drops off insanely quickly, it's the slowest thing ever. It's a slow melee, and then the whole blast proc ground finisher gameplay style just slows things down even further. You could of course ignore the status chance entirely, mod for purely elemental, which isn't necessarily the worst thing to do, but with the rather pathetic attack speed, the damage output of these things is painfully low, and honestly doesn't warrant the build costs even slightly. The Twin Basolk does nothing that other weapons don't do better. The Ninkondi, whilst doing less damage, are way faster and have a better status chance. So the chance for 100% status is there, plus they have a really good stance for them. Plus electricity creates even more useful combinations than fire does. So if you want a weapon that's going to dish out status procs, go for the Ninkondi. If you want a weapon for boosting the slide attack damage, then get something focused on doing that, like one of the Tomfers, like the Koehn or the Boltus, which do infinitely more damage on that slide attack than the Twin Basolk do. The Twin Basolk are trying to be a jack-of-all-trades weapon, but sadly fall short in almost every respect. Sadly, it's not even close to being worth the build costs, and definitely not worth using over something that's more focused on the job it's supposed to do. The only thing that it's got going for it, as I said earlier, is the fact that they look absolutely awesome. Now, I just want to apologise for the lack of content this week. I've had so much paperwork to do. It's more paperwork than I've seen in my entire life. That, and I've also been fairly ill as well. So it's not a particularly good combo. So expect the content that was coming for last week to be coming fairly regularly again the next few days. Now, I do want to say Armoured Warfare, while it's not my most viewed series right now, it's here to stay. Although it's not going to be that regular. I'm having huge fun with that game, so I just want to post some of the gameplay up as well. So as always guys, many thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next video.